Warriors, a couple of thoughts. Ghislaine Maxwell, sentenced to 20 years in prison. R. Kelly, sentenced today, 30 years in prison. Let me talk about it with you. Although I think this is great news, and it's certainly raising awareness about the issues of child sex trafficking, coercion, force, the role of Hollywood, the role of elites, the role of people with money doing this to our most vulnerable to kids, to young adults. It's not good enough. Ghislaine Maxwell, rumored that she will be going to Danbury, Connecticut, our neighbor here in New York. It is called Club Fed. And it is described as, I've never been inside, I've only been on the outside of it, kind of a resort for a federal prison that houses women. And people like Martha Stewart went there, nonviolent criminals. Teresa from the Real Housewives of New Jersey, 20 years. R. Kelly, today, 30 years. Now, the story of R. Kelly, there were rumors for years. I heard things for years. R. Kelly music business, but nobody ever did anything. Come on, Warriors, we know how celebrity is or money is. Everybody runs after it, wants to be a part of it, wants to be next to it. And I heard that parents were actually delivering their teens to R. Kelly. Now, he also had his entourage, as usual, people of what are considered note. I don't even like saying that. It's celebrity and it's people with money. A lot of hangers-on, a lot of being close to it. Same goes for Jeffrey Epstein. It was considered a big deal here in New York, where I am. Jeffrey Epstein frequently held dinner parties and put together what he considered the foremost brains, in science, mingling with society, mingling with old money, we call it, mingling with entertainment figures, mingling with politicians. And everybody wanted in. You had everybody going to these dinners. We normally just hear about the same old Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and all of that stuff. But you had the Katie Courics and the Jerry Seinfelds and, those, everybody wanted a ticket to the Jeffrey Epstein table. And that doesn't mean all of them are predators. That doesn't mean all of them really knew what's going on, because you know what, Warriors? Nobody, in my attention, pays attention to too much of anything outside of their own little sphere, their own little circle of what's happening with them. So we have this going on. Then we have R. Kelly, where parents, caretakers were delivering their children because they wanted their kids to be in show business, to be in the music business. So if they heard R. Kelly could audition their daughter. He also had associates that would hang out at couple of local Burger King and some high schools and middle schools and pick up. Remember, these predators are very good. And Ghislaine did it as well. They pick up on our most vulnerable. A girl who has, or a boy, no parental supervision, a working parent, one parent household. Ghislaine was known for trailer parks in Florida and offering jobs of answering doors and telephones for $200. And what girl, 15 years old, wouldn't say okay and go and try that? Ghislaine, 20 years. I think it should have been more. R. Kelly, 30 years. Definitely more. It's funny, I just got back from my radio program, Lynn's Warriors on WVOX, and I was thinking on the way home, I really wish if I was in charge, really in charge, I'd put a big stamp across their foreheads, a big tattoo, child predator, child rapist, sexual predator. I really would. It's my new thinking. Right across that forehead for everybody to see. But let's get into what I think is the problem here. I hope these two high-profile cases, this is not the end of the story, because let me remind you, Warriors, the victims, the survivors of any of these crimes, it goes on for their entire lives. You don't just get up and walk away from psychological abuse, manipulation, and physical assault, rape, entrapment. You don't. You don't get saved or rescued. I work with survivors. I work with prostitutes. I talk to them. I know what's going on in their minds, how they think. They have a good day, they have a bad day. And that's something that all of these victims of Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein and everybody with R. Kelly are going to be going through. We have to think about them. We have to support survivors, listen to survivors. I was very much, I was busy yesterday, but waiting. I had nonstop. I knew the sentencing for Ghislaine was yesterday, and I knew I'd be getting several alerts from the court, from press releases and the like. And the verdict came down. And so now this is a full 24 hours plus since that verdict of 20 years or sentencing. And so I've had time to think about it. And my thoughts are, this cannot be the end of this story. And this goes for R. Kelly too, because we have all of these victims or survivors, whatever you want to call them. They're both. And I had a couple of people, I'll leave it anonymous, reach out to me and say, I'm in fear because there were so many involved with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine of power, of money, that they're hoping this is not the end of the story. And I've been saying it all along. Where are all these other people? Where are the Les Wexners? Where are the Bill Richardsons? All of these people. I wasn't on the island. I don't know what happened behind closed doors. I know what victims reported. I've actually spoken to some. And that also goes for the mansion here on 71st Street, Jeffrey Epstein's home. But I wasn't there. And why aren't we talking about all the men, mostly men I've heard about, not women, with the exception of Ghislaine actually forcing herself on some of these young women and teens. I think she had them role play with some of her other cohorts there, women who worked for her. Why aren't we hearing more about, the Sarah Kellen? Why aren't we hearing, I guess they accepted immunity deals in exchange for information. So Jeffrey Epstein's dead or gone. Ghislaine is in prison for 20 years. She's 60 years old. But what about the trail of victims, survivors she and Jeffrey Epstein have left behind? We don't want this to be the end of the story. We want others held accountable. There were multiple people working with Jeffrey Epstein, whether it was booking transportation, booking lunch appointments, booking massages, booking I don't care what. They knew about all these young women. Why aren't they being held accountable? A couple of New York names I'm very familiar with. I haven't heard a peep, and they actually worked with Jeffrey Epstein. Immunity? I don't know, I guess. I also, when I quickly scanned the news yesterday afternoon, found the story, the sentencing of 20 years for Ghislaine. This should be a story, one of the stories of a lifetime, correct? Up there, out front. And you know what? It was on the bottom of a lot of different online sites. I will admit I did have a cabler on in the background, and they were covering other things. And even on the Chiron, that strip that goes along the bottom, I saw nothing mentioned. And I wasn't paying that close of attention, but there was no breaking in, nothing on the Chiron. And I thought, wow, they're really diminishing this sentencing. Media not spending a lot of time on it. R. Kelly, if I heard rumors years and years ago, then those close to him, I dare say, knew what was going on and could have helped, could have stopped, could have been more of a part in helping secure law enforcement. These are vulnerable people that are targeted. So we hope this isn't the end of the story. I think 20 years is, again, I'm not a lawyer, a very light sentence. We've got hundreds of lives, I dare say, ruined. Very few victims can just not talk about it and put it behind them. They live in their own psychological torture. So many are wrecked with guilt that they went along with this because they want it. That $200 or $300 they were paid each time they showed up at Jeffrey Epstein's house. How dare a woman like Ghislaine Maxwell, to a girl who has very little, no, parental figure, perhaps, cozy up to them, act like the big sister, act like a mother, suck them in, and then abuse them. That is a predator. That is a criminal. And she must be stopped. I dare say 20 years is not enough time ever. There is never enough of a sentence for these criminals. And R. Kelly, willingly, there were rumors for years about a particular video I won't go into too much detail about, with a very young girl. And what about all the buzz I heard about Jeffrey Epstein, who owned a house in Paris? We've never really heard about that. Because I heard, again, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, that there were very young girls involved. We're talking 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls involved. Poof, where is that? Now, I know the man's dead, but Ghislaine was his right hand. She must have been part of it or complicit. And who else? There's so many more. I want all of you to remember and to think of the victims and to think of the survivors. They live forever with all of these consequences. They live forever in fear of people finding out, of embarrassment and this guilt. It's psychological torture. We all make mistakes when we're young. So we need to open up our arms and support in any way possible any kind of survivor of human trafficking, of sexual exploitation. And there are so many. And we have so many things going on in our country right now. I said to my husband, I just said to him on the way home from the studio, I said, people don't want to hear about what I talk about all day long: trafficking, digital safety, predators. They only want to hear about it and talk about it when it happens to their child or within their family circle. Then they want to hear about it. Very few. The idea is to, engage and educate and empower and prevent. And on top of it, on the way home, I heard a story, it came on the radio, I was listening to one of these crime channels. And it was the story of a little 8-year-old girl named Cherish, whose mother took her to a Walmart along with her 2 sisters a couple of years back to go shopping for some clothes. And lo and behold, little 8-year-old Cherish within seconds disappeared. Now they have her on a security camera walking out of the Walmart with a man. And, they did find her a couple of days later dead in a lake, raped and abused and left for dead. Why are so many people harming children? What is it that they need to, overpower and do this? What is this evil that is lurking and it is escalating and rampant all over our society? That is why I'm urging each and every one of you to take control, to communicate with your kids, to get involved. Start looking at what games, they're playing, who they're talking to, privacy settings. June is Internet Safety Month. As we finish out the month, and few talked about this, there's a couple of simple steps you can take. Be consistent once a month, changing privacy settings with your child. Do it together. Let your child know, no matter what it is they've done online, they can come to you and tell you. You will not react. Adults, we cannot We have to just accept this is the world, and we have to help our children, and we have to help them correct all of this, because I understand that it's very common, because I do focus groups. I talk to a lot of kids, teens. Normal for 11 and 12-year-olds to talk sexually, very normal for them to exchange nudes. They've grown up in this world, and it's just part of their life. We have to break it. We have to really engage them, because the predators know all of this. It is just their world. The predators are beating us. The predators are winning. Remember, wherever the kids are, so are the predators, and they are on every platform, every app that we use and the kids use. Just looking, and our children are certainly vulnerable. This all leads to what we have as the youth mental health crisis. So, warriors, I want all of you take special attention. Talk to your kids. It's 2022. You have to. When the average age is they have seen graphic and violent pornography by age 11, wouldn't you rather be the one talking to them than some kid on the playground, some neighbor? Take a couple of easy warrior steps. Make it a point. Warriors, you must. No devices in the bedrooms. Devices always in public spaces. Child has a phone. Teen has a phone. I know plenty of parents who've started this. It was rough in the beginning, but now they're doing it. They report to me. No phones at night when they go to bed. You take their phones, you collect their phones. Change privacy settings at least once a month with your child. The importance of privacy, not sharing, even with tell the kids your best friend. No, relationship sour, things happen. No passwords, none of that, no sharing. Make sure what games they're on, ask them what games they're playing, and question them about what games they want to buy. Get to know what's going on in these games. Make sure it's only friends of theirs truly playing with them, because we know on the gaming apps in particular, the predators have been going after the boys, sextortion, really pressuring them. And we just can't have this. Enough is enough. So Ghislaine Maxwell, 20 years. She showed no remorse. She should have been crying, dropping to her knees in her shackles, apologizing. She didn't. She said she was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. She said that she hoped the 4 survivors that testified, or I should say not testified, but yesterday was their impact statements, that this would give them, she said something to the effect, it would give them great pleasure that she would be in prison for 20 years. And she'll probably be there. It's federal, 85% you have to serve. And then we have R. Kelly. He was up for life. He was given 30 years. I don't know. Prison folk don't like child abusers. Prison folk are a tough gang that this is the one thing they can't stand. So signing off, I'm going to urge all of you, my guest on my radio program today was a nun named Anabuti. And she and a fellow nun have created a nonprofit, Stop Trafficking, and they create films. People are visual, so people will watch films instead of reading. And their first film was about the education of sex trafficking. They are both victims of abuse and decided to devote their lives to doing good, impactful work. I really admire women like this. They just came out with a new documentary called Surviving Sex Trafficking, a follow-up to their original film, which was in 2017. And they did this all during the pandemic because they wanted to put, and I'm so with them on this, the emphasis on the survivor voice, because I think in this whole conversation and discussion and groups and organizations and government funding, the lack of, I will say, Well, there's funding to certain organizations, and other organizations, there's just nothing. That the survivor voice is left out. Now, we learn by their lived experiences. We learn by their survivor voice. We learn a survivor can speak to another survivor. Did you know only 1% of sex trafficking victims truly get out of the life with a clean slate? Now, what do I mean by that? Many times it takes 8, 9 times because the people keep returning to sex trafficking. It's the only thing they know. It's the only way to make money. They're very vulnerable. The pimp and trafficker have conditioned them. Their brains, this is all they're worth. And it's a lot more money than, working in the burger joint. But the truth is, most of these women and girls and all people report to me, they are so abused by their traffickers, their pimps, they don't see a dime. They are dependent on these criminals for their food, to put a roof over their head. They are just beaten down psychologically and conditioned to accept this lifestyle. So we have only 1% really getting out of it. So I want all of you, if you go to survivingsextraffickingfilm.com, the website survivingsextraffickingfilm.com, you will see Anna Booty and her partner describe how they created this film, how they enlisted Hollywood to help them with distribution, and how they got the survivor voice, got these women to trust them and share. But there's nothing like a visual to see something, to hear that lived experience. This will shock you, but it will motivate you to get up and do something to help with all of this. And with that, I ask all of you at all times, please consider a donation to Lynn's Warriors so we can continue our work of educating the public. We'll be rolling out more warrior workshops beginning in September. We've got a couple of speeches coming up in the fall. We've got an educational program in New Jersey we'll be talking about, spreading across the country. We've got a lot of things on tap, but money, and I know money's tight, so consider volunteer opportunities, consider retweeting, using your social platforms for good. Go to Lynn's Warriors on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, share something. That's doing your job. We're all in this together. We can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. We need all of you. So with that, we're happy about Ghislaine and her 20 years. We're happy is not really the right word, 30 years for R. Kelly. But let me leave you with, this cannot be the end of the story. There are more Ghislaines and R. Kellys all over, and it only seems to be escalating. So each and every day, I ask you, protect your children. Be a warrior.